My wife, Isabelle, took off her wedding ring with the flourish of a stage magician, placed it on the coffee table, and announced she was a free spirit meant to soar, that she could no longer suffocate in this beige prison of conformity, meaning our comfortable, stable life. She then grabbed a pre-packed bag and walked out. My response wasn't to plead or argue. It was to call a locksmith and then a private investigator. The report that PI delivered at our divorce mediation a few weeks later, let's just say Isabelle's soaring, involved a lot more turbulence than she anticipated. This story is about a journey of self-discovery, mainly mine, discovering just how delusional one person can be. Stick around for this one, and make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss these insane Reddit confessions. Picture this. Tuesday evening. I'm an engineer, a creature of logic. I'm trying to decompress after a long day watching a basketball game. Isabelle, my wife of 10 years, makes her entrance. All flowing fabric and dramatic size, she positions herself squarely between me and the TV. With a theatrical flourish, she removes her wedding ring, placing it on the coffee table like it's some ancient cursed relic. "Daniel," she intoned, her voice heavy with manufactured pathos, "I cannot, will not, continue to suffocate in this beige prison of conformity." I calmly hit the mute button on the remote. "Dim your light, Isabelle. What on earth are you talking about?" We had a stable life. Comfortable. Apparently comfortable was her code for soul-crushing. "I am talking about embracing life in its most vivid technicolor," she declared, a wild, almost unhinged look in her eyes. "I am embarking on a sacred journey to rediscover myself, to experience unbridled joy." She swept her hand dramatically towards the window, as if expecting a chariot of adoring new suitors to be waiting just outside. "And what about us?" I managed, a cold knot forming in my stomach. This felt less like a conversation and more like a poorly rehearsed monologue. "There is no us if I am not living my most authentic truth." And with that, she snatched a pre-packed overnight bag from the hallway, the kind of detail that just screams premeditation, grabbed her yoga mat, because of course, and made her grand theatrical exit. No discussion about our finances, our few shared assets, or the fact that the house was mine, premaritally. A detail I was suddenly, profoundly grateful for. Just a dramatic farewell wave, and she was gone, presumably to soar. The following morning, after a mostly sleepless night replaying her speech, my analytical engineer brain took over. "Free spirit," she'd proclaimed. What were the legal and financial implications of such a spirit taking flight from a decade-long marriage? I took a personal day. My first call was to a locksmith to secure my home, my premarital home. My second call was to Mr. Logan, a highly recommended private investigator. Discreet, thorough, exactly what I needed. "My wife has recently departed," I explained to him, keeping my voice calm and professional. "She's on what she terms a journey of self-discovery, to explore her free spirit. She has vacated the marital home to pursue this. I require comprehensive documentation of her activities, for clarity, as I anticipate divorce proceedings." I provided Isabelle's description, her car details. A canary yellow beetle, she unironically called her Freedom Chariot. Mr. Logan, a man who'd clearly heard it all and then some, quoted his rates. Retainer paid. He assured me surveillance would begin immediately, and he'd provide an initial summary of findings within a couple of weeks, with more detailed reports to follow. It had been just over a week since her grand departure. The new locks were on. The house was quiet, blessedly so. Isabelle hadn't tried to contact me. I was just waiting for Mr. Logan's first insights. She wanted her freedom. I was just ensuring I had a well-documented understanding of exactly how she chose to use it. Approximately 3 weeks after Isabelle's declaration of independence, the anticipated storm arrived. With no word from her directly, a thick manila envelope landed on my doorstep. Courier delivered. Inside? A typed list of demands from Isabelle, clearly composed in a state of peak delusion. No personal note, just a cold, itemized bill for her spiritual freedom. The highlights were truly something. a monthly self-actualization grant of $1,500, because apparently enlightenment isn't cheap, a holistic wellness and expansion fund of $1,500 for organic juice cleanses, aura alignments, and probably those sacred geometry art supplies she was always talking about. My continued payment of her car insurance and cell phone, both were on my family plans, an oversight I was already in the process of rectifying. And the absolute showstopper, a demand that I compensate her for her loss of access to the marital home's creative energy, essentially asking me to pay her rent because she'd chosen to leave my premarital house. The sheer, unadulterated nerve of it was almost impressive. This wasn't a request. It was a decree from Queen Isabelle of Delusionville. Before I could even call my newly retained lawyer, Ms. Avery Hayes, Isabelle's sister Jessica, who's 40, launched a phone offensive. Jessica has always treated Isabelle like some delicate, misunderstood oracle, and me like the caveman who just didn't grasp her mystical utterings. "Daniel!" she shrieked into the phone. "Isabelle is beside herself. How could you be so callous as to lock her out of her own home and ignore her perfectly reasonable requests for support during this vulnerable transition?" Isabelle must have discovered the new locks when a planned quick pop-in for more free spirit essentials was thwarted. "Jessica," I stated calmly, "Isabelle abandoned my premarital home after declaring her intent to seek other partners. She has made her choices. Her reasonable requests are frankly outrageous." "She is finding herself," Jessica insisted, her voice rising. "You should be supporting her journey, not obstructing it with your petty cruelty. She's talking to a lawyer, Daniel. She'll take you for everything." Click. The family party line was established. I was the villain for not funding my wife's voyage into infidelity. Later that week, I had my first detailed consultation with Ms. Hayes and also received Mr. Logan's initial comprehensive report. It was illuminating. Mr. Logan had identified 3 primary male associates Isabelle had been spiritually connecting with. Zen Zach, actual name Zachary Miller, a part-time barista with a penchant for open mic nights and apparently other men's wives. Synergy Steve, actual name Stephen Foster, a slick operator involved in some multi-level marketing scheme for questionable wellness products, who likely saw Isabelle as both a conquest and a potential downline. And Cosmic Chris, actual name Christopher Reed, currently unemployed, describing himself as a shamanic healer, whose healing sessions with Isabelle seemed to extend late into the night at various budget motels. The report included times, dates, locations of their meetings, and discrete, undeniable photographs. Mr. Logan also noted, surveillance indicates several other less frequent male contacts. Investigation into these individuals is ongoing. This was just the tip of the iceberg. Ms. Hayes reviewed Isabelle's demands and Mr. Logan's initial report with a steely gaze. Her request for creative energy compensation for a house she abandoned to pursue extramarital relationships is novel, Ms. Hayes remarked dryly, and legally laughable. Our strategy is clear. Respond firmly. Document everything. Ms. Hayes sent a formal letter to Isabelle, since she had not provided lawyer details yet, stating that all communication must now be through legal counsel, that I would not be funding her self-actualization, and that her car insurance and phone plan would cease under my name at the end of the current billing cycle. The wailing voicemail Isabelle left in response was Oscar-worthy. Jessica followed with another, accusing me of trying to leave Isabelle destitute and stranded. Apparently, free spirits don't factor in practicalities like paying their own DMM bills. Approximately 6 weeks after Isabelle's dramatic exit, she finally got her legal act together, such as it was. Her chosen champion? A Mr. Julian Vance, whose letterhead looked like it was designed in 1998. His opening salvo of demands was even more grandiose than Isabelle's initial list. Exclusive use and possession of my house, still beating that dead horse. Spousal support of $6,000 per month, because her nascent career as a visionary artist, her art mostly consisted of painting mandalas on driftwood she found, was allegedly stifled by the drudgery of being married to an engineer. A 60-40 asset split. In her favor, of course. Naturally, I was to cover her legal fees. And a new gem, damages for acute emotional distress and the suppression of her authentic, creative self. Ms. Hayes's response was a masterclass in polite but firm legal dismantling. She reiterated that the house was my separate property, period. She proposed a fair division of actual marital assets, which were minimal given our separate finances and the house being mine, and she stated a zero spousal support position, citing Isabelle's clear abandonment of the marriage and her documented conduct, a subtle hint at Mr. Logan's ongoing work. Mr. Vance, perhaps sensing he couldn't bully his way to victory, opted for mediation. The entitlement, however, wasn't confined to legal letters. Isabelle's mother, Mrs. Eleanor Sterling, a woman who earnestly believed Isabelle communed with angels and probably thought I was clipping her celestial wings, called me. Her voice trembled with emotion. "Daniel," she began, "this has to stop. Isabelle is making mistakes. Yes, she's lost. But she's a sensitive soul. These men she's associating with..." So even Mom knew about Zen Zach and company. "They aren't good for her. She needs your stability, your financial security, to help her heal and find her way back." "Mrs. Sterling," I replied, keeping my voice even, "Isabelle is an adult who made conscious choices. Her healing seems to involve a revolving door of men, and I will not be the financial enabler for it. All financial discussions will occur at mediation." I then politely disengaged. Then came the underhanded tactics. My HR department received an anonymous email. It alleged I was misusing company time and resources for a vindictive personal campaign, and that my erratic behavior and emotional instability due to severe marital discord were creating a hostile work environment. My boss, who knows my work ethic and professionalism, was skeptical. HR investigated, found zero evidence. I'd been meticulously careful, using only personal devices and personal time for divorce matters. The complaint was dismissed. Ms. Hayes, however, logged it as another instance of bad faith tactics, likely originating from Isabelle's camp. Next, a fraud alert from my bank. Isabelle had attempted to use the numbers from an old supplementary credit card, one I was the primary account holder for, and she was merely an authorized user on. I'd shredded the physical card years ago when we got new ones and thought the authorized user status was long canceled. She must have saved the details on some obscure online crystal shop. Her attempted purchase? A $2,000 platinum-infused Ascension pyramid. The transaction was declined because on Ms. Hayes' early advice to secure all financial avenues, I'd already contacted the bank to ensure any old authorized user privileges for Isabelle were definitively revoked, and spending limits on any potentially overlooked secondary numbers tied to my accounts were reduced to $1. Another documented instance of attempted financial maneuvering. Their desperation was becoming sloppy. Mediation day arrived. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Me and Ms. Hayes, composed and prepared. Isabelle, looking more frayed than free, sat with Mr. Vance, who fidgeted constantly. The mediator, Ms. Kendra Bell, exuded calm professionalism. Mr. Vance began painting Isabelle as the tragic heroine, a victim of my supposed emotional neglect, forced to seek solace and validation in the arms of... Well, he glossed over that part. He rehashed their outrageous demands. When Mr. Vance paused for dramatic effect, Ms. Hayes leaned forward. "Ms. Bell, Mr. Vance," she began, her voice cool and precise, "while my client is amenable to a fair and equitable division of assets accrued during the marital union, the demand for substantial ongoing spousal support is frankly untenable, given Ms. Isabelle's choices and conduct." She then succinctly outlined Isabelle's free spirit pronouncements, her voluntary abandonment of the marital home, and her immediate and ongoing pursuit of multiple extramarital relationships. Mr. Vance blustered. "My client was experiencing profound emotional vulnerability. She was merely seeking human connection." Ms. Hayes' eyebrow arched. Human connection? Or a replacement lifestyle funded by the husband she deserted? Which brings us to a crucial point. She paused, letting the silence hang. Before we discuss spousal support further, we believe it is essential for all parties to have a clear and comprehensive understanding of Ms. Isabelle's activities since she left the marital home. To this end, we engaged a licensed private investigator, Mr. Logan. The color drained from Mr. Vance's face. Isabelle looked like she'd swallowed a stone. Ms. Hayes produced a professionally bound, rather thick document, Mr. Logan's full and final report. This report, she stated, sliding it across the table towards them, contains detailed, dated, and photographically documented evidence of Ms. Isabelle's sacred journey to rediscover herself. Mr. Vance tentatively picked it up. As he flipped through the pages, the photos of Isabelle with Zachary Miller at various dimly lit bars, Isabelle canoodling with Stephen Foster in his flashy and likely leased car, Isabelle and Christopher Reed in a very public, very intimate aura cleansing on a secluded beach. His expression shifted from bluster to horror, and as Mr. Logan had diligently continued his work, the report also detailed her encounters with Devon Sharma, a fellow attendee from her advanced tantric yoga workshop, and Liam O'Connell, a man she'd met during a wine and consciousness evening. Her free spirit had indeed been soaring through multiple bedrooms. Ms. Bell, the mediator, glanced discreetly at a few of the more compromising photos, her professional mask unwavering, but a certain understanding dawning in her eyes. "This is an outrageous fabrication, an invasion of privacy," Mr. Vance stammered, his voice lacking all conviction. Ms. Hayes was unmoved. "These are corroborated facts, Mr. Vance. Facts that directly refute your client's claim to be a wronged, dependent spouse deserving of substantial support. In this state, as you know, adultery significantly impacts considerations for alimony. And while exploring one's free spirit has a certain romantic ring to it, when such exploration involves a consistent and documented pattern of extramarital sexual relationships, the court tends to use a less poetic term: adultery. Numerous counts, to be precise. The fight visibly deflated from Mr. Vance. Isabelle finally broke, not into quiet sniffles, but into heaving sobs of pure, unadulterated rage and thwarted entitlement. "He made me do it!" she shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at me. "His coldness! His boring beige soul!" Ms. Hayes, cool as ice, replied, "Your client's subjective assessment of my client's soul does not create a legal entitlement to his future income, particularly while she was actively and repeatedly violating her marital vows." The mediation dynamic shifted irrevocably. The grandiose demands shriveled under the harsh light of documented reality. The hours that followed were less a negotiation and more a carefully managed surrender on their part. Ms. Hayes was a scalpel, dissecting every last shred of their preposterous claims. Isabelle alternated between furious glares and pitiable whimpers, neither of which moved Ms. Hayes an inch. The final signed agreement: spousal support, a one-time, final lump sum payment of $7,500. This was explicitly not termed alimony, but as a transitional allowance to assist her in establishing an independent household. Not a penny more, not ever. Asset division. Our actual joint marital assets were few. A small joint savings account was split 50-50. And she was allowed to take specific items of mutually agreed-upon furniture. My premarital assets, crucially, the house and the significant majority of my retirement accounts, remained 100% mine. She received a legally mandated, very small percentage of the marital growth portion of my retirement funds, a figure that was laughably insignificant compared to her initial demands. Debts. All debts incurred by Isabelle since the date of separation were her sole responsibility. This included the outstanding loan on her rapidly depreciating yellow Freedom Chariot. Legal fees, each party to bear their own. This was a quiet victory, as it spared me the further insult of funding her frivolous legal battle. As Isabelle scrawled her signature on the agreement, her hand shook, not with sorrow, but with impotent fury. She shot me a venomous look. "You'll regret this, Daniel. You'll die old and alone in your sterile beige prison." "Perhaps," I replied, my voice even, "but I won't be doing it broke from bankrolling your free-spirited escapades. Isabelle, may your life be as colorful as you claim to desire." The aftermath has been nothing short of blissful relief. Isabelle, I heard, had a spectacular meltdown in Mr. Vance's office. He reportedly advised her that she was extremely fortunate, given the evidence, and that his firm would not be representing her further. Her familial flying monkeys, Jessica and Mrs. Sterling, made a few more tearful, accusatory calls. I didn't engage. Their voicemails were forwarded to Ms. Hayes, who dispatched a polite but unequivocal cease and desist communication. The calls stopped. Word travels. Isabelle's vibrant new life apparently stalled when the financial pipeline, i.e., me, was definitively severed. Zachary, Stephen, Christopher, Devin, and Liam all seemed to lose interest in her spiritual essence once it no longer came with a comfortable safety net. Her yellow beetle was reportedly repossessed. The last I heard, she had retreated to her mother, Mrs. Sterling's spare room, attempting to launch an online store for ethically sourced aura-cleansing smudge sticks. Sales, I'm told, are not brisk. Her free spirit apparently requires constant subsidization. And me? I am genuinely well. My beige prison is now a sanctuary of peace. I've repainted, upgraded my sound system, and rediscovered hobbies Isabelle had dismissed as uninspired. I'm focusing on my career, reconnecting with friends, and even tentatively exploring the dating scene again. This time, with a keen eye for genuine partnership over performative freedom. My finances are secure. My dignity is intact. The most potent revenge wasn't an explosion of anger, but the calm, methodical accumulation of truth. It was the click of Mr. Logan's camera, the precise language of Ms. Hayes' legal filings, the undeniable weight of Isabelle's own choices staring back at her from that mediation table. She demanded a life free of responsibility, funded by my labor. She received instead a one-way ticket to the consequences of her actions. Her spectacular entitlement collided with immovable reality, and reality as it tends to do won decisively. She dramatically took off her ring, expecting a chase, a plea, a continuation of her comfortable life under new terms. I simply nodded, hired professionals, and allowed her free spirit the full and unencumbered opportunity to self-destruct. And the look on her face when Mr. Logan's comprehensive, photographically illustrated report was laid bare. That, my friends, was a masterpiece of pure, unadulterated, and deeply satisfying karmic justice. Good riddance to Isabelle and her conveniently expensive free spirit.